Welcome to the Live Courageously podcast show. I'm your host, John Duffy, and this is episode 66. Live Courageously has been the conscious theme of my life for the last 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and it's also been an unconscious theme for most of my life. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. There's something contagious about someone who is courageous. There's someone, let me say that again, there's something contagious about someone who is courageous. Today's show is with my friend and courageous guest, Craig Stilley. And Craig, age 50, is a resilient individual who has overcome significant challenges in his life, battling OCD and various anxiety disorders since the age of 16. Craig's determination has led him to earn his GED after leaving school in the 9th grade. And through a combination of medication and therapy, he has effectively managed his disorders. Seeking an escape, Craig turned to boxing at age 16, finding refuge and discipline in the sport. In 1993, Craig took his passion for boxing to new heights by establishing his own boxing gym. His dedication to the sport propelled him to organize his first sanctioned amateur boxing event at the tender age of 19, and also as a trainer and a manager. Outside the ring, Craig is a multifaceted entrepreneur, serving as the owner of a commercial paint contractor company and venturing into various other business endeavors. He's also a close friend and assistant to the legendary boxing champ, Evander Holyfield. In addition to his business ventures, Craig is involved in the film industry and recently celebrated the publication of his debut book, Fractured Realities. Beyond his professional pursuits, he's a vocal advocate for mental health awareness, leveraging his own experiences to inspire and support others facing similar challenges. Craig Stilley embodies resilience, determination, and a passion for making a positive impact on the lives of others and in the realm of mental health. With that, let me welcome brother Craig to the Live Courageously podcast show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Craig, two things I like to ask. The first one, we have never met personally, although we so I guess the question is, how did we connect? And so I'll kind of shift it a little bit as to how we ended up coming into each other's lives.
Well, remember you were involved with Termite Watkins with his movie and everything, and I'd heard about you, and I think we just got each other's number somehow, and we started having phone conversations, just went from there.
Yeah, I think that's how it was. That was our connection, Termite, and I know you've been on Termite's podcast show as well. The other question I like to always ask, since the show is Live Courageously, is what does that mean to you in your life, the idea of living courageously?
Well, it's taking chances and overcoming things. You know, we all live with obstacles and things in our life, and to not to give into the fear and don't get beat down when something happens. That you can always come back from whatever obstacle that's in your way. And so I believe in life, to succeed in life, you have to be courageous. And, like you said at the beginning, it doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means doing what you have to do in the face of fear or whatever it is that you're having to overcome.
Well, I shared a little bit of your backstory and your bio, but take us a little bit deeper. I mean, you grew up in a small town in Texas. I think this is it, Orange,
Yes,
Texas.
that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the picture of it. And you started out as a young man in that small town. And tell us a little bit and take us into that journey of dealing with both getting into boxing as a young man, but why, and the issues that were affecting you in your life that made you make that choice.
Well, at the time I started suffering tremendously from OCD and different anxiety disorders, social anxiety, panic attacks. And so I started getting help, and I wanted something to distract me. And there was no boxing in this area at the time, back in 1989 or 90. But a friend of mine his dad was a professional boxer. So he started training me, and I started doing backyard fights and going around, fighting other people, the tough guys in backyards. And my teacher happened to be kin to a guy that I'd heard of. It was his uncle named Dick Menchaca, a legendary trainer in my area. And you can look him up on Wikipedia. And so he told him about me, and thought I should turn it more into something, of a sport. And so I went over there and started training with him, and we just hit it off and started training. It was something to distract me from my mental disorders at the time.
Let me ask you a question about that, because here you were like 16 years old and you're dealing with this,
Hmm.
and I'm going to get deeper into this as we go along. But
Hmm.
I imagine at that time there wasn't. Did you have an awareness of what that was and what you could do about it, or was there like that much of an awareness of that mental health issue in your family and your community when you started to experience all that?
No, there was. I didn't actually know what was going on. You know, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like panic attacks that just came every now and then. It was just a constant uh, doom, dread feeling, this hopeless with panic attacks that were, coming along, and people really think of OCD like the movies, to where you're jumping over lines or cracks, and that is the case sometimes. But with mine, it was more of with OCD is reoccurring thoughts, intrusive thoughts, scary thoughts that you can't get out of your mind, and you start doing certain things mentally to try to relieve it, and it becomes very distressing. So to answer your question, no, I didn't know at the time until finally my parents brought me to a psychiatrist in the area, and finally diagnosed me with what I had, and it was a trial and error after that with medications and just resilience. But to answer your question, I didn't know. I just thought I was losing my mind.
And between that help that your parents got you with therapy and you started to get into boxing, what did boxing give you to help you deal with that? What was so special about that that gave you a tool that was helpful to you?
Well, it seems kind of like ironic boxing, with fear and that, but I could relate to it because, well, doing the training, it would get my mind. That's the only time I could have peace. It sounds crazy, but that's the only time I could have peace was when I was training in boxing. But I didn't do it so much to be a tough guy. I did it because I thought if I could overcome my fear in the ring and stuff in these fights, I could overcome what was going on in my head. And so I just delved into it. And in other words, I could relate to it because when you're having this mental, this anxiety, you're by yourself. There's really no one. It's not like football. Now, I love football, but it's not like you pass the ball and a guy helps you catch it. In boxing, you're there by yourself, and so that I just related to it. And I've always thought that if I could, it taught me a lot, but it was a big distraction for me, training in boxing. Like I say, that's the only time. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the only time that I could find peace in my head.
Now, did you drop out of school when you started boxing before, and how did that kind of go together with you starting to, actually train as a boxer?
Well, it was actually my second ninth grade year, and I'd already started boxing the about the ending of the last year before in the summer. Then starting into that year, that's when my teacher told me about his uncle, and then I eventually stopped school because I couldn't sit in class. I mean, the rooms felt like they were closing in on me. Just this overwhelming panic. I couldn't concentrate, and so I went home and was sort of working for my dad with the paint company.
And then once you started boxing, what did that look like for people who've never trained or don't understand what the regiment of, as a young person, boxing? How often did you train? What was the training like for you, and kind of what did it give you, both physically and mentally? What were some of the takeaways that you got from that experience?
Well, people think that, boxing is two guys and they're fighting, but it's not like that. Like I try to explain to people, imagine being so tired sometimes you're trying to bend over and take a breath there and a guy trying to take your head off at the same time. It's more of a mental game than it is actually physically. Because once you get in shape, I've seen guys when I would train them come to the gym and they could run marathons and, do this. And then 30 seconds into the first round, they're burnt out because of the mental pressure. And so, um, uh, I love the mental part of the boxing. I love the training because it was you learn something new every day, and I just excelled at. It. I just started. I just had a knack for it, and I fell in love with the mental part of it. Like I say, the overcoming stuff, the having to overcome emotions and push yourself, and it just I just fell in love with it.
And so you went on and you had some you fought amateur fights, and you did that for a while, and then you started to train, like you said, with your trainers. Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, I was. I started out with sparring partners for my coaches, Dick Manchak is pros, and then I fought some amateur fights, and then I went to Kenny Weldon. We got to be good friends in Galena Park, which is around an hour and 45-minute drive from my house. So geographically, it was kind of impossible to go over there and train a lot. But I went as much as I could and learned a lot. And he took a liking to me, and taught me a lot of stuff. And I thought, well, I'm just going to start a gym because it was really not much back at my house, back at home. So I started one and opened it up at 19. And a couple of my buddies wanted me to train them, and I started training them. And I had my own style and what Kenny taught me and Dick Minchak, and it just went from there. And I brought, boxing back to my town.
Well, it's kind of funny because you mentioned Kenny Weldon, and I got a chance to actually meet him in Houston, Texas, and this is such a small world. It's also how we connected. I'm going to throw this up. This is a show that you were on with our friend Termite Watkins, and that's his podcast show, In the Ring. But your connection with Kenny and his connection with Kenny, and I watched your podcast show with them, and Termite shared a story about Kenny Weldon getting the actual ring that Muhammad Ali fought at the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, right?
With Cleveland Williams. He fought Cleveland Williams.
Yep. And so that ring ended up being over in Fighter Nation in Houston, Texas, which is where I got to meet and hang out with Termite, and also to meet Kenny Weldon. And just I'm gonna throw up a couple of pictures of us at the gym there, and with a couple of people in that gym in Fighter Nation in Houston, Texas. Go ahead.
One's a friend of mine, Reggie Johnson. We are four standing right there. The black man standing next to you, that's Reggie Johnson, 3-time world champion. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, great guy. It was a pleasure meeting him as well. And obviously, we're going to talk about some of the people in the boxing world, because you've had such a range of people you've made friends of besides Evander Holyfield. But I'm just for fun, because I'm gonna embarrass myself. But 8 years ago, I actually, I was down filming some stuff with Termite, and I got in the ring with him and did a little bit of fun sparring. And like you said, I thought I was in somewhat good shape. I play basketball all the time, and boy, that few minutes in the ring, just playing, was the most strenuous stuff that I have experienced. Of course, I was 40 pounds overweight compared to now, but I'm gonna throw that up real quick just because I think it'll be fun for the audience to just look at this. So let me see if I can get this up on the screen. Here we go.
There's Kenny right there, yeah.
And that's me with Termite in the ring.
Oh, you look like Kenny right there in the red at first.
Yes, me though.
Yeah.
40 pounds overweight. I was not in the shape I am today, so I'm ready for a rematch with Termite. But that was in that particular ring, and I'm not going to keep too much of this because I'm embarrassed showing it. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing with him, and just. But from having actually done boxing for your lifetime, like I experienced, it's very strenuous mentally and physically.
Yes, it is.
But then you went on, Craig. You went on from boxing yourself, and then you started to train others. And tell us a little bit, what made you want to train, and what did you bring as a trainer, besides why you did it? What did you bring to the young men that you trained?
Well, to me, it was such a life-changing, experience, boxing, and what it did for me mentally, and even spiritually eventually, that I wanted to share that with others. I wanted to teach it. I love teaching it. I wanted people to learn the sport, and that type of stuff. So when I opened it up, it was fun to better, watch people and better teach them and watch them transform into a fighter. And then it also, as I got older doing it, it was good, to help kids, because I had a lot of, boxing's sometimes you don't get, you get some kids that have a rough time, and it was good to impart in them what it did for me and watch it transform their lives. And eventually, when I got even older, it kept kids off the street, built up their confidence. And people think boxing, well, it's going to make them want to fight. It actually does the opposite, because when kids fight a lot in school, it's because they're angry or lack of confidence or trying to prove something. When they go in the ring and they do that, they don't have to fight. They feel very confident. And so I love that. And I love watching them win. Watching them accomplish things they didn't think they could accomplish,
Well, I think what you're saying is so true, because it's similar to you. I dropped out of high school when I was 15 years old in the South Bronx. And at the time I started studying not boxing, but Kung Fu.
Hmm.
And once again, like you said, you would think that those things would lead you to get into fights, and it was the exact opposite.
Right.
It gave you discipline, it gave you confidence, but it gave you not a desire to get into fights. I mean, you only wanted to do it in the arena that you were supposed to do it in, not outside in the streets.
Right.
So it kind of built up your character, and I think that's the other thing I think that you were doing with these young people, and maybe just speak a little bit more about that, Craig, because not only were you getting them in shape physically, you were building their character, which is probably even more important than just the physical training.
Yeah, like even to this day, I train a lot of people, but I'll have people on Facebook or I'll see them in Walmart and they'll tell me, hey, coach, you remember me? And I don't remember all the faces, but they'll tell me, hey, man, you made an impact in my life. You changed my life and taught me, if I don't quit and to keep going, I'll accomplish something. And I'm working at a plant now, a chemical plant or something like that, and how they've excelled in life. And that makes it all worth it, because I really wasn't in it because even though I did make amateur champions and such, that but it wasn't about that because if you get in there thinking, oh, I'm gonna have champions, you're going to be discouraged a lot because it's a rare thing. But to see it affect lives and help kids and stuff like that, and other people and adults, it really made a difference in my life too.
Well, Craig, what do you think today? Both of us obviously older. Seeing the young generation today, it just seems like that lack of opportunity for physical training, whether it's boxing or sports or the whole range of things. There isn't that much, young people don't seem to be into that as much, even though it has such value. It's almost like they've kind of moved in a direction that's a lot harmful to them. And then gets back to a conversation we're going to have a little deeper with the mental health issue, because
Mhm.
I think young people today got kind of trapped on social media and their computers. And that leads to even more mental health issues.
Right. Like I think about that all the time when I'm driving down neighborhoods. When I was a kid, we were always outside playing football, baseball, doing something. And you don't see kids doing that anymore. Like you say, their phones, social media, and things like that. And it seems like they've gotten kind of laxadays. They don't want to put forth any effort in anything. They want things given to them. And I think that's what's good about Fighter Nation and different gyms like that is they do get the kids and show them that there's more to the life than just Facebook and social media and playing on video games, and a lot of kids nowadays, they're trapped behind that. And I feel they don't have a meaning in life anymore. It's all about social media rather than a meaning of work ethic and, putting getting into something that's bigger than you.
Well, you've kind of expanded that in your own life in a couple of different ways, and I'm going to ask you about some of that too. But you're right, because you look at today, all our branches of the military are having a hard time recruiting young people because so many of them are not in physical shape to be in the military. Besides not having a desire, but you look at yourself having a sense of purpose and mission. So you kind of had a purpose with boxing and then training young people with boxing. But then you also went on to be an entrepreneur and start a business. And that too, for somebody who is a ninth grade dropout and then getting the GED, and I relate to that myself, dropping out of high school and then finally going back. You didn't kind of give up. You kind of moved forward, both in physical, but also in business. So tell us a little bit about that and that journey that led you to be an entrepreneur, and took you to, down the world of building the business.
Well, I always loved to read and study. That was always my interest. School was just something that, and with the anxiety and stuff, I couldn't, function good. But my dad, I had a father, luckily, that didn't just let you sit around. His exact words when I come home from school from, quitting, he was sitting there. And my dad actually owned the commercial paint contracting company at the time. And he said, "What are you doing home from school?" I said, "I don't want to go back to school. I can't." He said, "Well, sit down on the couch." And I was sitting there, the morning show was on, he was sitting there about to get ready to get dressed and go to work. He said, he goes, most kids have their high school years and their summer years to figure out what they want to do with their life. They said, you got 30 minutes. He said, by the time I get out of the shower, and get dressed, you're going to tell me what you want to do with your life. You want to go back to school or go to work. So I sat there and thought about my whole life. He got out. He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Go to work." He said, "Go put your work clothes on. This is what you're going to do the rest of your life." And that was that was it, And so um, going and working, transitioning from one day, to your mindset of being in school and everything to, it's the real world. My dad's like, you're paying your own food and such, was a big transition. But uh, I worked my way up the ladder. And when I loved reading philosophy, and I read what Plato said one time. He said, "It's better to be unborn than untaught, for ignorance is the root of all misfortune." And so it hit me. And so I just started studying. I couldn't count change until I was
Could,
22.
could you repeat that one more time, please?
The quote,
Yeah, from Plato.
yeah, it was by Plato. It said, "It's better to be unborn than untaught, for ignorance is the root of all misfortune." And so I couldn't count change until I was about 20, 21 years old. So I go to McDonald's. They wanted $2.43. I give them $3. So I had my old class book, and I started studying the math myself and started getting interested in things. And I taught myself, um, you know, all that kind of stuff and reading and studying as much as I could. And then just kept working and learning the trade and just studying everything I could get my hands on.
I think that too is something that's a great life lessons for people, because you both your dad giving you that to make that decision in 30 minutes, and that creating that you have to make things happen yourself. You have to work. You have to build a work ethic. You have to do those things. Some people will look at that and say, "Oh, that was hard," but that hard gave you the ability to become who you are today. It gave you the strength. Out of hard came strength because you overcame. And I think that's one thing that I know from what I've read about your life and paid attention to, is that you're an overcomer, and you overcome on so many different levels. But that's part of how we get stronger in life, is that when things are challenging, you overcome them.
Well, it's just like working out. You don't like the resistance, it hurts, but that's the only way you're going to get stronger. When you start viewing it like that, instead of my dad, I would go home as a kid and I'd say, "Dad, I have bad luck." He said, "Son, you make your own luck." He said, "98% of the time you make your own luck." Or if I say, "Dad, I want to do this," he'd say, "Well, go do it." Son, you got to go make things happen. And so he instilled that when I was young, is that if you want to do something, you got to go make it happen. And so whatever I wanted to do, it was just instilled in me. I didn't believe I couldn't, I always believed I could do it. And so, I was fortunate to have that instilled in me.
Yeah, you were very fortunate. Unfortunately, I think nowadays a lot of people don't have that message, whether it's coming from their parents or coming from society, telling them to do that. And the other side of being a lifelong learner, like you suggest, that's the same thing with me. When I dropped out of high school, I went on a learning journey and I started to read, and I fell in love with reading and study,
Mhm.
because I didn't like school, but I liked learning, and they
Right.
weren't the same. They weren't the same.
Mhm.
And if you are a lifelong learner, you get to do what you did. You start to learn the things you don't know, and you start to find a way to make them happen. And
Right.
I think that's a lesson from your life. I think that anybody can walk away with and say, yeah, that's something to model for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know anything about business, but I paid attention to my dad. I started studying business and paying attention. And, like anything, people always ask me what's the success of business, but I think it's a dynamic. But I believe that the two most important thing is determination and a creative imagination. I believe to have a creative imagination and determination is the key factors. There's other things that play a part, but to better see things, to have a vision and better see it, then have the determination to bring it to fruition. I don't take uh, just you got to take risk, but I don't take uncalculated risk. I think about things, but when I think about it, there's no turning back. I'm going to accomplish it. And obstacles to me is what makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely. I just I'm going to pivot back and then come forward again. But your boxing journey, behind you, you have a pair of boxing gloves hanging to the
Oh, that one
behind,
back
right,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
right back there.
yeah.
Tell, because part of your journey obviously has been the boxing journey, and then the people you've gotten to work with, know, have friends in life. But take us from that pair of gloves there. Why are they special? Why are they hanging
But
there?
that was my first pair of gloves that I owned. Dick Manchaka gave them to me, and they were old back then, and kids these days, they want the nice fancy gloves. I mean, if you notice, they got tape around the thumb, I mean, my thumb would go through them, and he put tape around them. And I remember I would hit when I was about to quit school. My hands would hurt me so bad from hitting the heavy bag, I couldn't hold a pencil in my hand. But I kept going, and it just those gloves just I kept them. They were just that was my. I was so excited to get the first pair of gloves. And what was your other question besides that?
Oh, I'm going to take you a little further to some of the people you've met because of that journey. But before we even go there, like you said, I'm going to just ask you another question. Like, what would you say your biggest lessons or the biggest things you learned being trained as a boxer and being in the ring? What were the takeaways that you came away as a young man with from that experience?
Well, I mean, it takes discipline, and you can't quit in boxing. I mean, if you can quit, you got three kinds of people. You got some that quit, you got some that survive, and some that try to overcome and win. And so I didn't want to quit because I felt if I quit, I would get in the habit of quitting, and this mental OCD anxiety would overtake me. And so I just took what I learned. I looked at life as like boxing. So what I learned in there is, keep going, keep pushing, don't quit, and bringing that into life, and transition that into life. And so it was paramount, that attitude.
And taking that attitude, I mean, you went on, like I said, training. You've met a lot of famous boxers, a lot of different celebrities. You've had a colorful life because of your experience. I'm going to throw up a picture of you with a bunch of people, and feel free to share some of the stories if you like with any of them. These are some of the people that have run in your life.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Where'd you get them, off my Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's me and Evander up at the top at Mark Wahlberg's celebrity charity event. And the second one was me and Mark and my date for the night. And the other one's when I was in Evander's wedding to the right of that. And Michael Nunn down there, Michael Nunn that was world champion, is a real good friend of mine. And I got him to bet to go to Mark Wahlberg's celebrity charity event this past year. And then the bottom other one with Sugar Ray Leonard and Evander, that was at a deal to raise money for Mark's charity event. And that's to the right is Kenny Anderson. That's a real good friend of mine, a celebrity that was a basketball player, and Raymond Arroyo, Fox News analyst, and you can't miss Evander. And that was the guy that was gambling in the middle, and Sugar Ray, which is a friend of mine, and Bob Wahlberg, and one of my good buddies to the left of Bob Wahlberg's Bronco McCart, that was a champion of the world, but it kind of cut his face in half. But yeah, a bunch of great guys right there. That's
Whoops. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they're just to name some other ones, but that's Ron Harper in the back of Bob Wahlberg right there. That was a basketball player. All a bunch of good guys.
And besides knowing all these great guys and people, some of these events that you're at and you're talking about are charity events for different charities, which you clearly have it's part of who you are, your identity, to be involved in things like that are about service to others. Tell us a little bit about what role that plays in your life, and that philosophy of serving others, not just yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing in life. As people ask me what success is, and I believe that success is about yourself, but I want to be great, and I believe great is when you help other people. Because that's what everything's about. Like when you help somebody up a mountain, you'll be there yourself. And so I'm always just trying to help other people and talk to them. I'm like about mental health advocate, that people that have mental health problems, I try to get them the help they need and encourage them. And in these events, that particular event for March for the youth for drug prevention and stuff like that with Jay Feldman, that's the CEO of Mark Wahlberg Automotive. They put it on every year. And so it's a good thing to go to and to give back and to help kids and bring people there to try to get more money so it can be used to help the youth.
And then just a couple other quick pictures. These are just some other folks with you right here.
Yeah, that's Tommy the Hitman Hearns and Ray. Yeah, right there. We're at Jay Feldman's Mediterranean restaurant. Great place in Michigan. Great food. Jay's a great guy.
And then there's a picture with a dear friend of mine and you, Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, Oh man, he's a great guy, man. That's just the nicest guy right there. He played Hercules. Yeah, I like Kevin. He's just a real nice guy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
fantastic. We did 2 movies
yeah,
together in Canada, and hopefully we'll get to do some more in the future. But yeah, a
yeah.
very special human being. Once again, somebody who gives back and does things to help others.
Right. Very
But
humble
tell
guy.
us, yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, it's a pleasure working with him.
Mhm.
But tell us a little stories. You're close to Evander Holyfield. Any stories that jump out from that world before we start to move forward into some of the stuff you're doing today and a little deeper into the mental health issues? But any stories from this boxing world that you would like to share before we go forward?
Well, Evander, before I ever met Evander, I turned my life to the Lord because of Evander in '96 when he fought Mike Tyson. And it's amazing how God works, brought us together and we're the best of friends. But yeah, I love his stories and he's a very wise guy. I mean, he has a lot of wisdom and he told me something one time. It really it resonated with me when he said, I asked him one time, I said, what was it like to lose your first fight, like that? He says, I don't lose. Oh, yeah, Evander, you lost. He goes, no, no. He said, I just don't get the decision sometimes. You lose when you quit. And I love that. I love that about life is that, and it made sense is that I just didn't get the decision. You only lose when you quit, and I just, his story's funny. Like one of the stories I love is we were talking one time and he said, when I was a kid, he said, I went to the Boys and Girls Club, it was a white man owned it and everything. I was like 8. He said, I didn't, my mama let me go and he said, I didn't have any shoes and dirty trunks, my hair all nappy, and he said, I went there and he said my older brothers always try to tell me, that white kids can't punch, can't fight. He said I didn't know. My older brothers told me that. He said so. I go there and he said I fight my fights. I'm winning. And he said, these kids, these white guys, these kids are being these nice trunks and crew cut and mom and dad, their expensive stuff. He said I'd hit them and they start crying. He said okay. He said to one day, he said Cecil Collins. He said, man, I noticed it was something different about Cecil. He said he didn't have any shoes on. He said he had dirty trunks. His hair was nappy. He wasn't smiling. His mom and daddy wasn't there. He said, so I go up there, I hit him. He said, Cecil Collins whooped my butt. And he said, I went home crying. He said, Mama, I quit. She said, she tore my butt up, said, you get your butt back to that gym. I don't raise a quitter. He said, so I was sort of fighting. He said, my first time, he goes, the second time I fought, he said, they matched me with Cecil Collins again. He said, Cecil whooped me again. He said, I run home. He said, but I hid this time. I didn't want my mama to know. He said, but she found out, whooped my butt, sent me back, said, you don't quit. He said, I fought. And he said, my first tournament, he said, I'm going in there and I'm worried about Cecil Collins. He said, so I'm look everywhere and I'm going to get a weight and put him underwear so I'll be a little heavier than him. He said, but I didn't see Cecil. He said, first night I won, second night I won, third night I won, fourth night, Cecil Collins. He said, I got in there and he said, I beat Cecil. And I run home to my mama. He said, Mama, I won, I won. She goes, now you can quit. And so I love hearing him tell that story because it's funny the way he tells it. Yeah. It's
That's that,
yeah,
that that is a good story, man. That
yeah.
is.
The way he
Uh,
tells it's hilarious.
and then of course just the message of it, right? Both his mama not letting him quit until he won and not being a
Yeah,
quitter, right?
right.
That message, and that applies to everything in life. Obviously, it's not just being in the ring, it's not just boxing. It's about all the things that we do in life where you
Mhm.
can either choose to quit or you can choose to grow and go on. And like you said, and the lesson from him saying that you didn't lose, you just didn't get the decision. Well, that's a
Mhm.
great message for life, isn't it?
It
Because,
is. We don't
just because you
always get
didn't,
the decision.
yeah, if you didn't make the sale or you didn't get the success that moment, that didn't mean you lost. It just means you didn't get the decision, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes is by Booker T. Washington. He said, it's not necessarily the success one is achieved in life, but the obstacles one has to overcome while trying to succeed. And I love that quote. That's probably my favorite quote because when I talk to people and they tell me what they accomplished, that doesn't impress me as much as what did it take you to get there? What did you have to overcome to get there? That's what inspires me. Is the struggles you have to overcome to get to where you got. And that's to me is everything.
Well, I think, I always look to it, my life, and I think it kind of echoes your life, is that I look back and I grew up in poverty and in the ghetto. And, when I look back on my life, people say, well, you had it hard. And I'm like, no, I had it good. because I feel like that was a blessing for me because I found a way to overcome all those things I didn't have. Where if I was born privileged with everything, I'd probably be a weak person that wouldn't have grown and got strong at just about anything. So
Right.
sometimes the question is not having things isn't necessarily a bad thing, if you can take that and overcome and find a way forward and not give up,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I look at things. You don't know what's really a blessing in disguise. I mean, um, things happen we don't understand it about, but it ends up working out for the best. It was a story about a guy that was a bowler, true story. He's a professional bowler. And so he was going to break the record for rolling 3 games, tournament deals, with all strikes. So he'd done it 2 times. He was going to do it the third time. It was the last roll. And this guy would get excited, man. He'd jump up and down and holler. And so when he went to roll his last roll, if it had done it, broke the world's record, he knocked them all down but 1 pin. So he got depressed, man. He's like, why? Why? Well, 2 weeks later, he had a heart attack. And when he went to the doctor, they said, if you'd have made that strike, the way you get so excited, it killed you on spot. You know,
Wow.
so sometimes we don't understand the things that happen in our life are really for our. That's why you got to take everything and just be glad that, and take it in perspective.
Yeah, I have a quote that I always say about life is this good or bad? Maybe yes, maybe no. Because you don't know, right? You don't have that perspective. You don't have the distance to say, is this happened to me? Is it a bad thing? Or maybe it's going to turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me? Or is it a good thing? You don't
Right.
know in the moment. It might look good, it might look bad, but you
Right.
really don't know. And that's that perspective you're saying. And I agree with you. Let me just jump back again. You
Okay.
mentioned in 96, you said you found the Lord, and that what was that about? Why and what got you to do that, and how did that impact your life going forward?
Well, I was having anxiety. I was on medication. It really wasn't working good. The anxiety and OCD would come back. I was kind of just wandering along, and had no direction. And Evander had always been my favorite fighter since when I was in fourth grade. I watched him in the Olympics, and I don't know what it was about him, but he became, even when I wasn't a boxing enthusiast, I always just liked Evander. And so
Huh.
I watched every one of his fights. I'd stay home and watch Michael Dokes when he was going to transition, to prove himself in the heavyweight division since he was, a light heavyweight. And so when Tyson, when they were supposed to fight the first time in '91, Tyson went to prison. Evander kept fighting. He was fighting all them wars. He's sort of looking kind of washed up. Tyson gets out of prison. He's knocking everybody out, becomes WBA champion. They match him up. And I'm thinking, Evander, what are you doing, man? You're going to get killed. This guy's going to kill you. Just retire. And so he gets on there, and everybody, he was a 27-1 underdog. The whole world thought he was going to lose, even worried about his health. And so he'd get on there, Evander's humble. He'd say, I'm going to win. I have the Holy Spirit. This is my platform to reach people, and I'm going to win by KO. And I'm thinking, this guy's done got fanatical. He's been hit too many times. Tell me, come on, man. And so, I'm having a going away party. I have everybody come to my house. We're going to watch Evander go. And so I'm watching this fight, and it no longer becomes a fight anymore. When I'm watching this thing, it's I've tried to explain it to people. It was a spiritual experience watching him handle Mike Tyson, till
Huh.
eventually he knocks Mike Tyson out. And when he got up there, I was kind of mesmerized. And when he got up there in Freddie Pacheco, I'll never forget it when he says, Evander, how did you pull off this upset? And Evander said, because I'm led by the Spirit of God. He said, well, let's get off God. Hopefully God's here for everybody. How did you how did you pull this off? He kind of grinned at Freddie. He says, because I'm led by the Spirit of God. He said, I'm washed up, but with Jesus Christ, I'm not washed up. And I said, I want what he's got. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so, it took me some while praying, and I eventually, changed my life and turned it to the Lord. And that's when everything just, it wasn't hunky dory, but
Sure.
that's when it gave me a meaning, you know,
Wow.
and I believe, yeah.
A-
And it
a-
goes
a-
on even further than that. We just don't have the time to talk about it all, you know.
Well, we may squeeze in a little bit more, but obviously
Yeah.
it's you kind of move forward with a bunch of things. And let's just jump to some of them, and then we may even come back to this if we have more time. But I want to make sure we get to some of the things and I'm going to throw up 2 different things right here. This is a trailer, a teaser that you filmed for a movie about your life. And then on
Mhm.
the other side is a book that just is on Amazon now, a new book that you just did. And let me just
Mhm.
take that down so we can see it. Um,
Right.
and tell us about Both of them. But let's start with the film idea and the movie, and then I'm going to play a little bit of a teaser that you filmed, so the
Okay.
audience can see that. So tell us a little bit about that, and I know that you have some title changes involved in that as well. So share that.
Yeah, the Against the Ropes is the working title. A good friend of mine, Jackie Kellen, had a movie called Against the Ropes, and I don't want to get them confused or anything. Hers come out first, so it'll change. That's just the working title, but it's a movie about an aspect of my life about boxing. It's based on it, and it's not a boxing show. It has boxing in it, but it shows the backdrop of boxing, what takes place, behind the scenes and things like that, and some experiences that I experienced in boxing. And so I felt compelled to show it. And so I made the sizzles, it's a teaser to gain producers, gain traction and attention along with the treatment. And so I put that together.
And let me ask you, once again, that given your background, that was a step outside the comfort zone, maybe a step into a new endeavor for yourself. What kind of gave you the idea to want to do that? And then, what gave you the strength to keep going to the point where you were actually able to make that happen with the teaser?
Well, I just felt compelled to do it. I felt that that's the direction the Lord wanted me to go. And so didn't know anything. I didn't know a cinematographer from a hole in the ground, but I started doing my research. I started studying, and doing my research, and I got a hold of some people and started getting on the right track. I said I'm going to make it, and people came in my life, that were a blessing to me. And a guy named Tommy Warren. I don't know if you know Tommy. He's a very very just an amazing guy uh, in the film industry. He actually owns the biggest production studio in the state of Texas. And so he
Hmm.
started advising me on things and helped me get going. And, I told him, he said, well, he was being kind of pragmatic about the odds. I said, man, I don't quit. I won't quit. I'm going to do it. So I sort of studied and made it. And, I think it turned out well. And it's got me some traction. I have a producer and everything. And just trying to get the finance and, like everything else, that's the hurdle, and get the finance and to put it all together.
Yeah, I remember we had talked way back when. I don't even remember when, but you you
Oh, it
you
was
were on
a
that.
couple of years ago.
Yeah, you were on that
Yeah.
journey, and I was, and like you said, you told him, you also told me back then, you don't quit, and you were going to make it happen, and you did. So,
Mhm.
well, with that, let me just put it up, and so people can see this teaser for the story. Good job, man.
Thank you.
Well done, well done.
Thank you.
Once again, you mentioned earlier, and just to share with the audience the story, it's the goal of it is to make a feature film, and it's not like you mentioned, it's in the world of boxing, but it's not your traditional. It's not a boxing movie. It's not
Right.
like a Rocky story. It's
No.
something. It's something deeper and has a
Hmm.
lot more of the elements of your life and message that you want to share. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, like in the scenes where it showed the lady writing, that's obviously, that's my psychologist talking to me and everything, and going through problems with my anxiety. And that was me as a young, kid getting bullied and kind of coming up through it. I don't want to reveal too much about it, about the show, but it takes place the struggle, that I was going through along in the boxing world, and putting the story together about, dealing with some of the unscrupulous people in boxing, that you have to deal with in the business aspect of it. And I think it's a good story of overcoming and how things work in boxing and perseverance.
And you're working to make this a reality, to go from that teaser to actually making a feature film. And you're, like you said, you have a producer and you're still
Yes.
working. And if anybody is interested in getting involved, supporting it, helping with financing, helping with whatever, where would they contact you?
C Stilley Enterprises at gmail.com, or you can look me up on Facebook, Craig Stilley. I don't want to give out my number because one time I did a podcast and the guy put my
Don't do
number up
that.
there, and
Don't do
I
that.
got everybody, man. Everybody was blowing my phone up with all kind of stuff. So that's the best
Yeah.
ways to contact me right there.
So yeah. So your email and then also your on Facebook.
Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
find me on there. Craig Stilley.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then the next thing was, besides this amount, just with this, like I said, people can reach out to you, support it, and we look forward to it. But a big part of it is dealing with some of the issues of your life. And then just recently, you came out with this your book,
Mhm.
and that I think I threw up, but I'm gonna throw it up again. And that's right here.
Mhm.
And
Fractured
now this
Reality.
is yeah. And tell us about this. What is this about? I had a chance to read it. It's on Amazon now, I believe. So
Mhm.
tell us why this? Why did you write this? What is it? Share what it's about with the audience.
It's a psychological thriller. It's a suspense. It's fiction, and I always had these stories in my head, that I would want to do in the movies and everything. And Tommy Warren was, again, that's the one that I dedicate the book to. He gave me the idea. He's like, just write the book. And I thought, yeah, instead of sitting back, just waiting for a screenplay or something like that, I'll just start writing my book. And I didn't know how to write a book. I'd never done that, took on that endeavor. And I kept asking, I was reading books, how to write books, what people do, and getting caught up on things. And Tommy kept saying, Craig, just tell your story. Don't worry about how other people do it. Just write it. So finally, I sat down one day and I just said, I'm going to write my book. And I just started writing, and it became free. I didn't worry about the names. I just have a name of reference like Bob, or whoever, and put it down, and just really found out that I had a talent for it. It was really, it was it was kind of like it was a relief, like I finally get my stories out and I can do it myself. And so I went with it and got an editor and got it going and finally got it published. It's just another feather in my hat, and now I have three other stories that I have another book I'm almost finished with the skeleton part that I have to go back and it's a romance story that I have two other books I'm gonna work on after it.
So they can get this one on Amazon, Fractured Reality, correct?
On the
And I
Kindle
recommend
ebooks.
go ahead.
It's Kindle ebooks now. I'm in the process right now of getting the books printed. Yes,
Oh,
but
okay.
you can get on Kindle ebooks right now. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'll put it up later on after the show's over. The stuff you give me below, but I definitely recommend it. It's well written. Congratulations. It's
Thank you.
not easy. It's not easy to
Mhm.
write it. What was that like for you? I mean, obviously the process of writing it. Being not a writer and then making the decision and just doing it.
Man, it was really once I got my way of doing it down. It was really it was fun. It was. But I'm very descriptive, as you read it and everything. And so to get in that world, because it's a psychological thriller, it was a strange place, but I liked it. I liked putting it together. It was frustrating sometimes of doing things because I believe writer's block is just laziness. Is the person that you got to stay at it. Like Einstein said, it's not that I'm any smarter than anybody else. I stay with the problem longer, and so it's pushing through it. And so I I loved it. Putting it, see it in your head. You know what I mean? And just putting it down on paper, and other people feeling the feeling that you want to give them, and seeing the vision and everything. It's amazing. And so I'm excited about my next one. I'm about 98% with the skeleton of it. I just can't wait to keep going with it. You know.
Well, I definitely congratulate you on producing it and on the writing because, I don't really read much psychological thrillers or anything, but when you asked me to read it, I was like, yeah, of course. And then when I read it, I was like, wow, this is freaking good, man. Um, you know,
Thank you.
So, it was, and it surprised me. I didn't expect, and that's the nature of it. You actually did what the purpose of it was, making a thriller where you don't know what's going to happen and you just engage going, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
But yeah, congratulations on that, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, and best with the other stuff that you get with your next one. I look forward to reading that as well and sharing that with people. Going back, a big part of as we get close, we got to think a little bit about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
A big part of your message and your purpose and mission is to deal with the issue of mental health and help others and to share your healing journey, your therapeutic journey throughout life, dealing with that issue. So why don't we take a little bit and why don't you share some of that with the audience and how important that is to you and what you're trying to do in that realm.
Yeah, it's never you get to a point to where you're like, oh, I'm healed. You know what I mean? I have to do things every day I work out to help myself and try to stay positive. I take medication that's very, very effective. Go to my psychologist, and check in with my psychiatrist and stay on top of things. It's a something you got to stay on top of. But I like to let people know, there's help out there. And yet people, medicine don't work, this and that. But what I like to explain about mental health is like cars going down the road at night. You see these cars and they put their brakes on. You see the brake lights come on, the cars slow down. All of them look the same. But if you go in the car and ask each driver why they did it, someone say, "Well, I dropped my cell phone." Another might have said there was a bump in the road. And it's kind of like that with mental health. Is that even though all the symptoms look the same, there's different reasons causing it inside. And so, what works for one person might not work with the other. But if you stay at it and you keep going and don't give up, there is hope and you can get better. Once you get the momentum going, you can learn to manage it. You might not ever cure it, but you can manage it. It just depends on how fast you catch it and exactly what the diagnosis is. But I'm very much on trying to educate people to get help, but that help's out there, and that alcohol and drugs is not the answer. That just makes it worse. It ends up you have more problems, and that you can get better. And that it doesn't mean you're weak. If anything, dealing with that stuff makes you strong. It's not a weakness. Men, there's nothing wrong with me. Well, it's just like if you get a liver problem, you don't mind going to the liver doctor. If you get COVID or the flu, you go to the brain is an organ like anything else that can, get sick. And there's doctors out there, we're not 100%, the brain's the last frontier. We're trying to figure it out, but we're scratching the surface. We're starting to get a better understanding of it, and we're in an exciting time of having, with this.
Well, I think, what you just shared and what you always share, we clearly trying to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs is the worst thing to do because that has no positive outcome. And like, and trying to get help, and I think you're right, especially for men, it takes courage to admit you need help. Because there's that, we're raised with, we got to do it all by ourselves. We got to be tough. We got to be this, we got to be that. But, when you have an issue, whatever that issue is, getting the help to deal with it is courage. It's not weakness, it's courage.
Yeah. And like, I love the philosopher, I believe it was Kierkegaard that said that being oneself is the opposite of despair. The despair is choosing to be other than oneself. And so when you can be vulnerable and open up and admit, and accept what you have and be okay with it, the better you are. I believe life's a journey of self-actualization and learning about yourself. You'll never be there 100%, but it's the journey, and and look at it like that.
Yeah, and like you said too, in the metaphor of the driving in the cars, each person's different. Each person has a different experience, and it may look similar, but it's different. So, we are what we are, and you may not like it or may not want it to be what it is, but it is what it is. And then the question is, what are you going to do about it? And are you going to get the help or not get the help? And then it comes down to the choices you make at that point. Are you going to try and find a way to deal with this issue and overcome it as best you can, or you're not? And that's where you have a choice. and making the right choice will lead to either a positive or a negative outcome.
Right. And that's everything. You might not bet I love reading about Viktor Frankl. He's one of my best, one of my favorite psychiatrists, philosophers. He tries to say,
Amazing.
you've read Victor. I love his
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
and
absolutely
his whole thing,
powerful stuff.
yeah, his whole thing's about meaning. If you can, and Friedrich Nietzsche said, if you can find meaning in the why, you can always bear the how. And so I believe is if whatever you have, if you like with my anxiety and OC, it doesn't define me. It doesn't make me who I am. That it's something that I have, but it's not something that I am. That I can make the choice to manage it rather than it manage me. And I have tough times, but there is no perfect life. There is no normal life. We all have something, and that it's how you deal with it and learn to manage it and overcome it.
Well, that's the thing. Like you said, there is no perfect life. We all have things. And, some of the actions you took, the choices you made, the lessons you learned from both being in the ring and training people is you have a mindset and your mind, a choice of a mindset. And when you choose that mindset, like not quitting, that's a choice, because you can quit and you don't have to keep going. It's up to you. But making that choice will lead to a different outcome than making the choice to quit, right? So, you have those choices, and like you're suggesting to people to make the right choices for their mental health, to get the help, to reach out, to find a way to overcome it with others' help, not by yourself. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
Right.
There's people there for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all need other people in our lives. We can't do it by ourselves. We weren't put here to live by ourselves. We were put here to live with everybody else.
Right. And if you quit, you're guaranteed not to get any better. But there's always hope. You can always get better. Like, hope is a better stimulus for life than happiness will ever be. That hope is what keeps us going. So um if you're breathing, there's you have an opportunity to get better. And that's just the way I look at it. I've had the point where, I didn't think it was ever going to end. Like, man, is there any hope? And I'm so thankful that I kept pushing forward, because again, it proved to myself that I proved I can get better and things do get better.
Yeah, and also, Craig, and I think not only that, which is true, you also took this struggle that you had and used it as a gift to help others, to take
Right.
that and become a message, to become part of who your purpose and mission is to take this thing that was troubling you and share it so that others would get stronger and have hope. So that's
Right. I
the
mean,
other thing, right?
yeah. And my accomplishments, honestly, my accomplishments aren't to toot my own horn. It's to show people you can do the same thing. Whatever
Right.
your dreams are, whatever you want to do, you got to put forth the work and the effort, but you can accomplish it. If I can do it, you can do it. It's that simple. I'm no different than anybody else. I just don't quit. The determination, just keep going, and you'll get there. I mean,
Hey, right on, 100%.
yeah.
I agree. So, Craig, any as we wrap it up, any takeaways, any final messages, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, on the mental health aspects, like I'm saying, is if something's wrong, if there's medication out there to help you, why suffer? There's help available. Get help. Go to somebody, admit that you have a problem. And have courage and take the steps to get better. Don't turn to alcohol and drugs. It's not gonna. It's gonna be a different problem. Um, and just try to find the help you need. And as far as boxing. I love the sport. I think it's a great sport. It becomes a little different when you get in the pros, is when things change. But as a mental aspect of it, it did a lot for me, and I just believe that we're here one time. We have one time we're here. If people really grasp that, so I want to do everything I can do. When I like doing things that are hard because you know I don't like doing things that are easy. I like doing things that are hard because when you accomplish them, that's what makes it worthwhile. And so that's what I try to encourage other people to do. If you have a dream, you know, go for it. Make calculated decisions. Don't just throw caution to the wind, but don't let obstacles. People say obstacles. I have obstacles. I'm like, obstacles are the path. They're not blocking your path. They are the path. And so set out to accomplish it, and make the best of your life.
100%, man. 100% agree. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your story and coming on, and I appreciate your courage and your honesty and your, ability to take the things that you were thrown in your life and use them as stepping stones. I think your message to everybody is powerful. So I hope people check out your book, and then also check out what you're trying to do with your film in the future. And we'll stay connected. So once again, thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this story with everybody.
All right, man. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'm gonna close out the show now. All right, thank you, brother.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, so I hope today's show with Craig inspired you with his commitment to never quitting and the lessons that he dealt with of dealing and overcoming mental health challenges. So I think there was a lot of lessons there that we can model and use in our lives. And if you haven't seen the previous 65 podcasts with some of my other amazing, courageous friends, you can check them out on YouTube, my Live Courageously YouTube channel. And please take a look at that. And then join me every Sunday at 3 p.m. And I have some rather unique friends coming up in the next 3 weeks. And these are just some of the friends that I have: Ted Shred, an animal trainer, fire eater; Alex Gilfie, Army veteran; Todd Speciale, an entrepreneur, speaker, and just amazing, great friends of mine who are going to be sharing their stories. And one of the stories, I'm going to be traveling out of the mainland, and I'm going to be filming from a location which you'll find out about. So join me every Sunday, 3 p.m. And once again, thank you everybody for watching. And thank you, Craig. And until I see you next Sunday, live courageously.